Man, there's a lot of new stuff, and it feels like I've been doing nothing but leak videos for this week. So, welcome back folks for yet another leak video. And today we'll discuss the AMX-30A, which is basically the prototype to the AMX-30B. And both tanks will be added to the French tech tree right after the AMX-1390. So French tank players, rejoice because it's a great choice. Alright, the D2 at tier 3 doesn't count. That tank is a freaking heavy tank. Ugh, disgusting. And the Lorraine 40T also doesn't count. That's basically a AMX 5100 number 2. So, ugh, disgusting. So it's a great choice. Now the AMX-30A looks a lot like the Leopard 1 as well as the AMX-30B. So both tanks share a lot of resemblance to the German counterpart. That is because the Germans, West Germany, was sharing designs and brainstorming with the French as well as the Italians and whatnot during that time. So this tank was designed in the early 60s alongside the Leopard 1. So the tank tactics used for these two tanks were pretty much the same. So you can expect the AMX-30 tanks to play the same as the Leopard 1 tanks. So I'm fine with that. Alright, so here's a little history about the French tanks right after World War II. Now the RL 44 was designed right after World War II, and it quickly becomes obsolete because it's kind of crap, since the French were also using leftover Panthers as well as the Pattons, the M47s and M48s. Now during the early 60s, French and West Germany teamed up to have a competition of design. So they want to design a tank that performs pretty well than the Patton and have mobility as well as a good firepower, while lacking a little bit in armor because they decided that no armor can defeat shaped charges at that time. So shaped charges are basically high explosive anti-tank shells. So composite armor was not discovered yet or researched yet. So at that time, armor was put last. So they favored mobility first, then firepower, and put the armor last. So basically this tank has no armor, like the Leopard 1. So alright, but it's still used as a main battle tank for the French. So here's an analogy. The AMX-30 tanks were like the M60 Pattons to the French. So you can compare it like that. Whereas during the 90s, the AMX-30s were replaced by the Leclerc. You know this word. So basically this tank replaced the AMX-30 as the main battle tank for the French. There's like 2 L's and 2 E's and 2 C's, the Leclerc. Oh, okay, but that's pretty much the history of French tanks right after World War II. And you may wonder what happened to the AMX-13 series as well as the 50 series. Now, if you already watched my AMX-1357 video, you will know that the AMX-13s were still used as reconnaissance vehicles, so scouting, as well as fast attack vehicles. Some of them were changed into artillery and anti-aircraft system, as well as mobile missile launching systems. So the AMX-13s were still used. Now about the 50 series. The 50 series were cancelled in favor of the 30 series because the 50 series were big tanks, and there's a lot of problems with this tank. So basically the main problem is the turret, the oscillating turret. The turret is pretty weak, and if it gets shot at, that means the crew will easily get injured or killed. Also, the sealing of the turret ring on the oscillating turret is very difficult. That means providing protection against nuclear or chemical or radioactive substances will be very difficult for the crew. So the 50 series were cancelled because the sealing of the normal turret on the 30 series were actually better. So they preferred the AMX-30 series. So that's basically the French tanks in a nutshell after World War II. And here are the in-game models for the AMX-30 prototype. It looks a lot like the Leopard 1, so it's a pretty sexy tank. Note that the turret is center mounted instead of forward mounted like the Leopard prototype, so the engine deck is not raised, and you have the same gun depression all the way around, so that's always a plus. So it's a pretty sexy looking tank. The only nitpicking cosmetic detail about this tank, which is there's a lack of muzzle brake. So if there's a muzzle brake on this tank, that would be spectacular, but that's just small stuff. Alright, this tank has no armor whatsoever, so the best you can get is 80mm at the front, so a little strip. The top of the glacis is about 50mm, the lower is about 55, so no armor whatsoever. Side armor is about 30. Yeah, the mantlet, however, is kind of big, so that's always good, and it's about 130mm, so you might be able to troll a few shots with the mantlet. And there's armor behind the mantlet too, so that's always a plus, but the rest of this tank has no armor whatsoever. So yeah, don't get hit. Artillery, yeah, don't get hit. So you have no armor whatsoever. Ugh. Yeah, ass has no armor. So, alright. And here are the actual stats of the AMX-30A prototype. Now it's going to be a tier 9 French medium tank, and it is researchable after AMX-1390, so it's not a premium tank. Alright, the gun barrel design looks kind of funky. It's not the L7A1. It's a German design. It's not the British Royal Ordnance. It has 1650 hit points, which is below average, but alright. It's not that bad. It's just below average. Engine power is 720, which is good. It has only 32.5 tons for weight. So power to weight ratio is 22.15, which is very good. Top speed is 65 kilometers per hour. Reverse is 23, so it's pretty mobile in a straight line. Now hull traverse is kinda slow, 36 degrees per second, so that's not that good. It is the same as the AMX CDC, and if you already watched my AMX CDC impression video, that tank doesn't turn as fast as I wanted it to, so this kind of is the weak spot of this tank. Terrain resistance is pretty good, 0.86 for hard, 0.959 for medium, and 1.726 for soft, so it's pretty good. Turret traverse is also good, 46 degrees per second about, so that's pretty good. View range is passable in my opinion, 390 meters. So if you think about it this way, the Centurion 7.1 has 410, so that's 20 more than this tank. So the view range could be better, but that's still passable. Radio range is standard, above 700, so don't have to complain. Hull armor, the best is 80mm at the front, 30 at the sides, and likely 30 at the rear. Turret armor is 80 at the front, but it has a very good mantlet, 40 at the sides, and likely 30 at the rear. Now, this is a normal tank, so it pretty much should have a stock gun and an upgraded gun, like most tank, but if it's gonna put the 90mm, this tank was never meant to carry the 90mm that was on the AMX 1390. So how are you gonna do the stock gun? Are you gonna put like a single shot version of the 105mm that's found on the the 100mm that's found on the Lorry 40T? I don't even know. But the elite gun is 105mm, which has 260mm of penetration, 290 damage. Likely use APCR as premium ammo. No. It is likely to use APCR as normal ammo and high explosive anti-tank as premium ammo. So it's like the Centurion 7.1 as well as a Leopard prototype and the Type 61. So it gets to fit into those groups. DPM is actually pretty good for this gun. It has about 2,500 DPM. So if you think about it this way, the Leopard prototype used almost the same gun, but that has a DPM of about 2,000. Same goes for the Centurion 7.1. So you have about 25% more DPM. That is pretty crazy. So it reloads every 9 seconds or so if you have a gun rammer, and about 8.7 seconds if you have a good crew with brothers in arms and vents. So That's a pretty good gun. Accuracy is also great, 0.316. So not laser-like, but pretty goddamn close. Aim time is good, okay-ish for this gun. So 2.21 seconds, the same as the Centurion 7.1. So can't complain much. Gun depression is decent, 8 degrees, which is still good in comparison to stuff like the Russians or the Chinese. So 8 degrees of gun depression is pretty good, and 20 degrees of gun elevation. So this tank is basically a Leopard 1 with a little bit more turret armor in the terms of mantlet, but cannot turn as fast because of the lack of hull traverse. So that's the only weak spot. So this is the biggest weak spot that I can notice on this tank. The second one is a mediocre view range, but that's alright. That's not that bad. So, alright. And let's compare the AMX-30A with the Leopard prototype. So, both tanks have no armor, obviously, but the Leopard prototype has about 70 millimeters at the front, whereas this tank has only like 50. So, armor is still crap on both tanks, but the gun mantlet is actually bigger on the AMX-30A, so that's always a plus. So the mantlet is also thicker, about 50 more millimeters, or at least 50 to 70 more millimeters. So that's always a plus. So let's look at the engine and power wise. So horsepower is actually better on the Leopard prototype, but the AMX weighs less, so the power to weight ratio is actually better on the AMX. So that's good. It doesn't turn as fast as the Leopard prototype, so the AMX cannot brawl, so to speak. So it cannot fight other medium tanks and circle strafe as best as other medium tanks. So more suited to sniping roles. Alright. Top speed is the same. Reverse is the same. But it gets better terrain resistance, so it can move through sloshy grounds and hard terrain better. That's good. Alright. What else can we compare? Armor is about the same. 10 meters less view range on the AMX. Alright, looks like the gun depression. Way better gun depression by 2 more degrees, so 33% more gun depression. That's good. Turret traverse is actually faster, so you could brawl, but the turret needs to turn pretty fast. So the turret is still decent, so you can shift to targets pretty good too. So that's good. Now let's look at the gun. So here's the gun. Penetration is 8 millimeters less, but that's still alright. So that's fine. Damage is the same. DPM is way better, so about 200 more. So you can actually pump out more shots. That's good. The reload time with good crew and gun rammer and Brothers in Arms is probably 8.7 seconds. So the DPM is way better. What else can we see? Accuracy is a little bit worse, but still pretty goddamn close to laser-like accuracy, 0.316 in comparison to 0.307. So accuracy is not that much off. Aim time is the same, so that's good. And gun depression is actually better by 2 degrees. That's good. Gun elevation is the same, so that's good. So in terms, it plays more like a sniping tank with less direct mobility in terms of hull traverse, but forward speed is the same. Power to weight ratio is the same, so it has better terrain resistance too. So let's compare the Centurion 7.1, because the Centurion is more suited to sniping, whereas the Leopard 1 is both roles, I guess. So it has better DPM than the Centurion. That's good. Accuracy is not as good, obviously, but the Centurion has more gun depression at the cost of gun elevation. So alright, but better power to weight ratio. How about terrain resistance? I need to know. Yeah, better terrain resistance than the Centurion, and the Centurion can climb hills like a motherfucker. So this tank can climb hills too, but the view range is not as good. So the downsides to the AMX-30A is the hull traverse and the view range. So that's the only 2 weak spots about this tank. The rest of this tank is pretty decent in my opinion. So alright. So final verdict on the AMX-30A prototype is that this tank is pretty good. It's like the Leopard prototype, but you have more mobility in terms of straight line. So you can actually move faster in a straight line than the Leopard prototype. The hull traverse is not as good, so that's the only weak spot about this tank. The view range is also not as good, but it's still passable. So you play this tank like a sniper, so snipe. You could passive scout, but the view range, nah, I wouldn't recommend it. So it has better terrain resistance, better power to weight ratio, the same top speed and reverse speed as a Leopard prototype, so it's more mobile than the Leopard prototype in a straight line. The gun's also better in DPM, not as good as the accuracy, but the accuracy is not that different, not that much, about 0.01 difference, so it's not that much. So yeah, this tank is pretty good. DPM is about 2,700 or so with a good crew, gun rammer, and vents. So that's pretty crazy. And the penetration is obviously great. So there's nothing bad about this tank. So hopefully you regrind the XP on the AMX-3090 for this tank because it's a good medium tank. So thank you guys for watching this video, and hope you guys enjoyed it. So I'll look forward to this medium tank introduced, but it'll probably be patch 9.8 or something like that. It won't be soon, so it'll be 9.7. That'll be a surprise, but if it is 9.7, that'll be good, but I doubt it. So it'll probably be 9.8 or so, hopefully. We'll see. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a comment below on what you think about this new French medium tank that's actually a medium tank instead of the crappy pseudo heavy tank like the D2 or the pseudo heavy tank like the Lorry 40T. Ugh. But yeah, it's a good medium tank, very good. So yeah, rate this video if you can. That always help me out a lot. Comment below on what you think about this tank, and subscribe to my channel for more World of Tanks stuff. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.